In today's episode, we're talking about a boy, a 4-year-old boy who was found dead on the side of the road, and the mother who was charged with his murder. Welcome, lambs. Welcome to your midweek mini episode of Love and Murder, Heartbreak to Homicide. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kai, and go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss an episode. Before we begin, I want to remind you that this episode and all my episodes are sponsored by my lambs in Patreon, patreon.com/love and murder. If you want bonus episodes, case extras, and so much more, and to be a supporter of Love and Murder, then go ahead and join our Patreon, patreon.com/love and murder. Now let's get into this midweek mini. This case happened in Everett, Washington, which is about 30 miles north of Seattle. It happened on March 27th, 2024 at around 4 p.m. when a grandmother reported that her 4-year-old grandchild, Ariel Garcia, was missing under suspicious circumstances. That's literally what it says, quote, suspicious circumstances. When the grandmother reported her grandchild missing, about 100 state, local, and federal investigators launched an extensive search and discovered that the boy was last seen that morning. To some, that's like, oh, well, it's 4 p.m. I mean, it's the same day. It's a 4-year-old. Imagine a 4-year-old being missing for an entire day. So although this didn't meet the criteria for an Amber Alert, the Washington State Patrol still issued an endangered missing person advisory to the local media. So the reason why Ariel's grandmother was so worried about him was that when she came home to her apartment where her daughter, Janet Garcia, and the little boy, Ariel, were staying, she found a large amount of blood. Apparently, Janet claimed, allegedly, that Ariel had fallen and hit his head that morning, and she took him to the hospital. She said the wait was, quote, too long, so she left. She then dropped Ariel off at home in Seattle, and she got on a bus, and where the frick did she go? So he bashed his head, he bled a lot, you took him to the hospital, where the wait was too long for your son to be seen, so you dropped him off at home and left? This makes sense? This is your story? The more police questioned her, the more inconsistent her story became. Police also noticed that she had blood on her shirt and shoes. During the investigation, police also found out that Janet was going through a custody dispute. It's not with who you think. It's between her and her mother, the grandmother. Apparently, the grandmother had filed a petition for guardianships 2 days before Ariel went missing. So, for, quote, false and misleading statements, police placed Janet in custody just a few hours after it was determined that Ariel had disappeared. They also impounded her car. They did end up having to release Janet, but she was again arrested right after that because she had trespassed at a group home. Then, FBI's tracked her movements with her cell phone, and that led them to a horrible discovery. So on March 28th, just before 6 p.m., Ariel's body was found along I-5 in the Tacoma area, which is just south of Seattle. Although at the scene, investigators initially identified 16, quote, sharp force wounds, after an autopsy, it was determined that there were actually 41. And the manner of death was ruled, quote, homicidal violence. Quote, I am completely heartbroken for the family and friends of Ariel Garcia, and they will remain in my thoughts as they grieve this unbelievable, tragic loss. This came from Everett's mayor, Cassie Franklin. So one thing I do want to say is when the grandmother was trying to get custody of Ariel, she's quoted in her affidavit as saying, quote, I love my grandson and I want to protect him from whatever his mom is capable of while she's on drugs. He trusts me and feels safe with me. Since I've cared for Ariel all these years, I am already aware of his needs. The grandmother also went on to say in her affidavit that Janet is, quote, not capable of parenting while she's on drugs and exhibits, quote, very violent and unpredictable behavior. It also alleged that Janet would also leave Ariel and another child alone without supervision so she can go to the bar and drink alcohol. So based on the affidavit, the grandmother trying to get custody, based on the evidence, investigators put the story together. Janet stabbed her 4-year-old son approximately 41 times at her apartment, which is her mom's apartment, before then dumping his body on the side of a highway wrapped in a blanket. So she was already in custody, but now her charge has been upgraded to first-degree murder. At her arraignment hearing on March 25th, prosecutors argued that the number of stab wounds showed that the attack against Ariel was, quote, prolonged. The defense said that the killing was not premeditated, but rather, quote, a tragic circumstance of the failure of meaningful access to addiction treatment and mental health resources. Really? Wow, wow. Oh, okay. So Janet was taken to the Snohomish County Jail where she is being held on a $3 million bond. The Everett Police Chief, John DeRoos, said, quote, on behalf of the Everett Police Department, I want to share our condolences with the loved ones of young Ariel Garcia. This is not the outcome we had hoped for. What do y'all think about that? Because I'm baffled. The attorney, I guess because it's her defense, she had to come up with something, but what you came up with was blaming access to addiction treatment. Addiction treatment is only available to those who want to take it. And mental health resources? What the hell does that have to do, if anything? If she didn't want to take addiction treatment, no matter if it was like literally in her backyard, that's not the reason that this happened. I don't think it was a premeditated event. I think she wasn't thinking, like her mom says she's on drugs, she's violent. She says, you're not taking my child. If I can't have him, no one can. And that was it. I don't really think it was premeditated. Like she sat there and planned this out. I don't think she thought that far about it. But to act like it's because she doesn't have access to addiction treatment and mental health resources, are you freaking kidding me? So anyways, I want to hear your thoughts on this case. Please let me know in the comments below. And I have an update to another case. Remember the case of John Eisenman, the one who said he saved his daughter from the sex trafficker boyfriend? So if you don't remember it, or if you're new here, I put the link to that episode in the show notes below. Now you have to hear this case. I want you to listen to this case and see if John did the right thing. So if you haven't listened to this case, please go to the show notes below. Listen to this case before you listen to the update. So just hit pause here. All right. For those of you who have heard of this case, there's a bit of an update. So Brenda Cross is currently being held at the Spokane County Jail on first-degree murder charges, and her bail is set at $1 million. Who is Brenda Cross? Well, she is the fiancée of John Eisenman, who is the person who admitted to killing his daughter's boyfriend, saying that he saved her from a sex trafficker. Ultimately, police found no evidence that Andrew was sex trafficking, and it's what I thought it was. I think this guy was just angry, and the first dude he saw was, you did this to her. He did go get her and everything like that, but you didn't know who did this to her. He just assumed it was the boyfriend and went ahead and took out his revenge on the boyfriend, which again, this is where investigations come from. It's not for you to just turn to the first person you see and say, you did this to her. So apparently his fiancée was arrested on September 15th, 2022 in connection with the murder. Apparently what happened was she had met with a human resources employee and a loss prevention employee on August 18th, 2022, and asked to take a leave of absence due to ongoing mental health issues. She said that she was having trouble coping with her separation from John after he was arrested in connection with Andrew's murder. So after she asked for that leave of absence, then the loss prevention employee hung up, but then her and the HR employee kept talking for about an hour. During their conversation, Brenda kept asking if there were any cameras or recording devices in the room. So she's actually in the room with HR. The loss prevention had joined in via phone, but then hung up. So she's just in the room with HR talking to them. And she's asking if there's any cameras in the room, if there's any recording devices in the room, like, is there anything that's going to record what I'm saying? So the HR employee said no. And she's like, why do you keep asking this? Like, so what if they are? Like, why do you keep asking this? And that's when Brenda admitted to the HR employee that she was there when John killed Andrew. but she didn't tell police that she was there because, quote, both of them couldn't go to jail. One of them needed to care for her children. She then told the HR employee that her and John had taken her car to a field in Airway Heights and, quote, this is where they killed Andrew. She also said that the song Crying, Crying, Crying was playing while she and John killed Andrew. She then started to hum the song. Are you reliving this? What the frick? So the HR employee asked her, why was that song playing? You put it on? And then she said, quote, she played it because Sorensen was crying so much and begging for his life. She said that song was perfect because her and John were, quote, laughing and singing while Sorensen was crying. She then told the HR employees that she, quote, got a few good swings at Sorensen with a knuckle ring right to his face. After that, her and John hit Andrew in the head with a cinder block, beat him, and stabbed him. After he was dead, they then put him in the trunk of her car. Then John dropped her off at their house, and he took the car to East Everett Avenue and ditched the car, where it was later discovered by police. She then told the HR employee that the cops can't arrest her because the fingerprints were found on her car and, quote, with Eisenman's confession saying she had nothing to do with it, plus the fact that Sorensen had been dead for over a year before they even found him, there was nothing left of him, so they can't prove a thing, so she is off the hook. End quote. So then the HR employee, playing along, because she took a page out of the book of Kai, said that it doesn't seem that you feel guilty about what you did, to which Brenda said she didn't. The only reason that she wouldn't speak to police about what she did was because Andrew, quote, got what he deserved. She then told the HR employee that, look, this conversation is confidential, so you can't tell the police. What do you think? This is HR employee privilege or something? Like, what? What made you think that that was a thing? Because even if you're in your therapist where you actually have doctor-client confidentiality privilege, they can still tell the police. Where in your head did you think that was a thing? She then said, quote, the good news was that the police couldn't do anything about it anyway. So she went home, had her several days off, and then she came back to work and went up to the HR employee and said, quote, you remember our conversation never happened, right? Well, that HR employee went to the police on August 22nd and told them everything that Brenda had told her. First of all, as you know, if you're going to commit a crime, tell everybody you know and everybody you don't. Have as much evidence on you and around you as possible and keep everything in your cell phone, on your computer, just, you know the drill. So she did the tell everybody you know, everybody you don't, and then told them that they can't tell the cops because confidentiality, whatever. Second, this happened, she told the HR employee this on August 18th. Why did it take them till August 22nd to tell the police? I would have said something as her last foot left my door. As that last heel walked over the threshold of my door, I would have been dialing the last one in 911. Why did it take so long? Look, HR employee, I'm not getting on you because you still did the right thing. You still told 911. Maybe you were afraid for your life. Maybe you thought it was a joke. I don't know. You had your reasons. I'm not getting on you. I'm just saying. That's all. I'm just saying what I'm saying. Maybe I would have done the same thing. I'm not in your position. So trust me, I'm not getting on you. But just by first look, I'm just wondering why it took that long. So anyways, that was the update on the John Eisenman case. You gotta go back. If you haven't heard this case, if you didn't hear my retelling of this case, go in the show notes below. I know you probably already heard all of this because you didn't pause it like I told you to, whatever. Anyways, go in the show notes below, hit that link and listen to that episode. This update is insane. And I don't know how I missed this because this happened in 2022. How the frick did I miss this update? But anyways, that was the update on that. Wow. Just wow. What do you think about that? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. That is all I have for you in this episode, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye.